Easy habits today. We have so many short-term pleasures, especially with the rise of technology. So what led me to write my book was all of these short-term dopamine pleasures that we have in this overstimulating society. I was wondering, if we could just take a break and pull back for a little bit and do what I call a dopamine detox, a little bit of a reset, then a lot of really great things can actually start to happen. And that impacted my life so much that I decided to write my own book on, just taking a fast and trying to change the behaviors of our modern day. Like, we have so many easy things that we could just do, pull out our phones, get a quick dopamine hit, get our likes on social media, this, that, and it's so overstimulating, and that's what I talk about in my book.
And you're 17, so you wrote the book when you were 16.
Yes.
And you were already thinking about big societal issues, and you knew what dopamine was. You're amazing. I hope you write more books.
We need more teenagers like me.
I agree. Hear, hear.
Now that you've written this book, right, what's your goal to do with it this year? What do you want to make happen?
So my goal is to spread my message as best as I can to especially people my age too, because
Yes.
I feel like people my age are the ones who actually don't see this as much. Because I talk to a group of people like you who are a lot older and mindful of these issues, but the reality is people my age are not as knowledgeable on this subject. So my goal would be to spread my message as best as I can.
All right, so who's putting this guy on their podcast?
Exactly, right away.
Especially you got podcast here.
Yep.
Who's
We're
putting
gonna
together
platform.
a
We're gonna
tour for
platform Blake
him?
and
Yeah.
He needs a tour.
That's remember we talked about what we do. We're not just talking in this room, right? We're doing things. It's all a room full of doers. So we're gonna platform you, Blake. All right. So.
Yeah.
Blake, could you please come up and join us? And
fast is not a new one to me, but I love the fact that you're bringing this to your peers, right? And so I think we're really curious. So I don't really know exactly what you're going to talk about, which is great. So and I don't think any of us do. So we're just going to turn it over to you. We really appreciate you coming here and joining us today. So Blake, I'll just hand you the stage and take it away.
All right, thank you so much. And yes, today I'm going to be talking about the impact of technology. And from a youth perspective, my name is Blake Rabizadeh. I am a published author of my own book called Dopamine Detox, the ultimate guide to reset your brain. And I'm so happy to see a lot of faces who are all interested in longevity and health span at this health span event. And first, I just want to tell you a little bit about myself. So I love videography and photography. I have been doing that for over 5 years now, and I'm 17 years old, being one of the youngest people you're probably going to see here. I'm a freelance worker on a website called Fiverr.com, and I do freelance work on there. Yes, I'm very passionate.
Yeah, I love that.
Yes, Fiverr is my go-to for all my clients. Yeah, so I'm very passionate about digital sovereignty. That's why I'm here speaking today. I love mixed martial arts. And I did suffer from a technology addiction. It was very bad. Ever since I was around 12, 13 years old, anything, from social media just to the video games on my iPad, I had a very, very, very bad technology addiction, which really impacted me and led me to get into researching what dopamine was. And does anyone know what dopamine is? Can I just get a raise of hand? Who's even heard of this? Yes, some hands. So yes, dopamine is a neurotransmitter in the brain. And some people say it's the feel-good chemical, but it actually has to do with the motivation. When you want to go get a reward, when you want to go make money, and you're motivated by this dopamine in your brain, and it helps with the regulation of movement, motivation, reward, and emotion. So, in our world, I believe that it's actually hard to have children in these days with the overstimulation of society, because with so much stimulation, a lot of people my age are experiencing an imbalance of dopamine, and this leads to a lot of things like depression, anxiety, and changes in appetite and sleep patterns. Because who has children here? Okay, would you think that this is affecting your children? Would you agree? Definitely. I think this is affecting their sleep. This is affecting it on so many levels. So I want to dive a little bit deeper into dopamine. I've prepared a little video for you guys, just diving into dopamine and technology in general. People call it the chemical of want and desire, but why is that? Well, here's how it works. From an evolutionary standpoint, your brain will reward you for anything that will increase the likelihood of survival by releasing a neurotransmitter in your brain called dopamine. That's the reason why it feels so damn good to play video games or to eat a steak, because our brain thinks that video games give us rewards and that a fat piece of meat equals a long-lasting satiation. Let's look at an example. As soon as you're standing in front of your fridge and you have a choice to either pick a cucumber or a piece of chocolate, your brain will automatically tell you to pick the one that releases more dopamine because it knows it will release more pleasure. So naturally, you will choose the chocolate. Now you might say, well, that's not that bad. It's okay to eat a piece of chocolate every now and then. And that's true, but as soon as your brain releases a lot of dopamine, it will try to stimulate the craving for the thing over and over again until you develop an urge for it, and that's when the addiction kicks in and we can't live without it. For this reason, alcoholics or drug addicts. The thing is that dopamine doesn't know what's good for us and what isn't. It doesn't know that eating too much chocolate is unhealthy for us. All it sees is a potential of pleasure without any context. And for this reason, drug addicts are willing to let their whole life fall apart, only to get that one hit of dopamine again and again.
It affects society too.
The terrifying reality is that almost every company in our modern society exploits this deeply rooted reward system by putting it on steroids. There are millions of experts specifically designing their products and internet platforms to release as much dopamine as possible in order to make us come back over and over again. That's why social media platforms switch from chronological feeds to an algorithm-based feed, and that's why video games have levels and ranking systems to keep us coming back. They give us constant dopamine hits as we jump from one post to the next one and from one level to the next one. And what makes it even easier for us to engage in social media, junk food, alcohol, drugs, or any other source of instant gratification is that it doesn't take us any effort. We simply have to consume and are instantly rewarded with massive hits of dopamine. It's crazy to believe, but we live in a world which is designed to stimulate our emotions in order to maximize profits. It is scientifically proven that dopamine has a direct influence on the decisions we make and the actions we take. That's why ultimately dopamine controls us on a daily basis, and that's why billions of people unconsciously focus their whole life on consuming instead of creating the lives that they actually want to live.
Alright, awesome.
Very good. Bravo.
Yes.
About what's happening to us?
Yeah.
So, that was crazy. A whole society controlled by dopamine. But I asked a question in my book. What if we were to just take a break? Let's say for a week. If we were just to take a step back from everything into this society that has just been overstimulating, what would happen? And I've actually done that. I've taken my own break and I was so motivated by it, created like tremendous results with my sleep, with my ability to find happiness in everything, whether it would be just to go on walks or just meditating. I would find happiness in the things that I wouldn't actually find. I would find myself connecting to music even more. This music was just making me feel so much more happy than it was before. So many just benefits started to come in. And this is what led me to doing what I call a dopamine detox. So there's no way to actually detox from dopamine. Our brains are always creating this. Even if you were to just look at a wall and not do anything or have no social connection, our brains are just always producing this. But I like to call it a dopamine detox just because it's very relatable when I say that. So the goal of it is to help a person feel more in control of their dopamine levels and reduce the symptoms associated with dopamine imbalances, and such as anxiety or addiction. This can create more focus, reducing overstimulation. It boosts creativity and productivity, and we see with overstimulation so many cases of ADHD now. And it prevents future dopamine-related issues like diabetes or obesity that's created from dopamine and our pleasures. So I want to take a deeper look into the more medical field of this. There's a doctor, Konon Kornetsky, who actually did a study of rats, and I wanted to show that with you guys. So they created obstacles that the rats had to go through to get to the dopamine lever. So these rats, they would hit this lever and get dopamine in their brain. And look what the doctor says.
The interesting thing about the old stimulation, the rewarding stimulation, was the strength of it. It was somewhat different than rewarding stimulation for food and water, in that there was no satiation. Animals would continue for hours and hours and didn't seem to satiate. They didn't feel full. They would just keep doing it for long, long periods of time. They would do it to exhaustion.
The rats would get hazed and injured just to get to
They would even injure themselves in order to get to that hit.
It's happening to us humans. And we see this with drug addicts who literally give up their whole
for drugs. With video games, social media, and anything that can give you a rush of dopamine can soon take control over your life.
Unfortunately, it is affecting us and the next generation and our children. Dr. Conan Kornetsky, University of Boston, he is pioneering research in drug addiction. He conducted that study. So I did want to take a look into the medical aspect of it, but also technology use and consumerism. I wanted to dive into that and how it affects us. So I decided to conduct my own research, and I asked questions like, how does consumerism affect us? Why are product sales heavily motivated through advertising? And are we actually being controlled through technology and social media to buy products? And I just want to raise a hand. Who has used and consumed content from a social media platform like TikTok, Facebook, or Instagram in the last week, let's say? Pretty much everyone, right? So if I want to tell you that TikTok, for example, if you go on TikTok and there was a dog video, then let's say you love dogs, you watch that video for 10 seconds, and you like that video and you comment on it, and then there was another video and it was a boring video that you didn't like and you swiped up and you kept on going, it's just a very boring video. TikTok actually saves that information. It knows you like dogs. It knows, and it will actually give you advertisements based on dogs and dog products. And it gets to the point where these platforms actually know us better than we know ourselves, because it records all that data. And that led me to do more research. So I asked a marketing manager, this is Darren Sarto, he's a marketing manager who works at Revolution Media, a marketing management company based in Los Angeles. And I asked him, I said, do you really think that these social media platforms are influencing the products we buy on a daily basis? And obviously he was a little biased owning his own marketing company. So this is how he pays his bills, he has a roof over his head. But even though he was still a little biased, he did agree with me on some aspects. He said, my company runs on research. I need that research. And that's how he pays his bills. So that was actually a very interesting thing that I found. So right now, I actually have some question handouts just to get some conversations started here. Thank you. So yeah, these questions are just based on everything I was talking about, so we can have a more detailed conversation. If you feel like any of these questions have related to you or what I've been talking about, feel free to just raise your hand and talk about something. I would love to have a conversation with all of you because we're all here pretty much for the same reasons, and we're here together at the Health Span event. And one more thing I just wanted to touch on as a concluding statement is that although I've been talking about how bad technology can be, we also did talk about... Yes.
No, I was just going to say, because our question here is, what strategies do you use to limit your own technology use and reduce its impact on your dopamine levels and consumer behavior? I've gotten very disciplined about, first of all, first thing in the morning, the last thing you want to do is start looking through those things, because it just overloads your brain. You get pulled into all of these other ideologies and things, and so it's kind of like, to me, compartmentalizing it, like when am I on it to do some business stuff or reach out to people or have conversations? When am I just, I call it like wanking off and just posting stuff that gets me off, and whether it lands with anybody else or whatever. That's like the honest way of talking about it. But I just don't spend tons of time even scrolling, because I find that so much of what I'm seeing is not what I want to be seeing, so I have to search more for that content. So I've just learned to just really get away from it a lot. Like sometimes people get annoyed when you're not looking at my message, you're not answering, because hashtag I don't give a fuck. Like I just don't have time in the day. I have other things that I have to prioritize, and I don't want to be drawn into all those other agendas and ideologies.
So I'm sorry, you did so awesome, by the way, first off.
Yes.
Speaker, I'm thinking this kid's like seven. Like when I was 17, I could talk in front of a room. Like I've been a professional public speaker now for over 20 years, but when I was your age, I couldn't even imagine doing what you just did. So
so my question, I don't know, for me, and I know a lot of people, they're so addicted, it's like getting that rush or getting that it's kind of even hard to think about exactly what's happening. Like sometimes I'll notice my phone's in my hand. I don't even remember how it got there. I'll check some of these apps probably hundreds of times per day. but like you were alluding to, they know exactly what they want to show you too. Like the ads and stuff, like they got me already. It's like, oh, like this is a product I'd probably be interested in. So how to, like for someone who is like, you know, checking their phone a lot, I mean, how do you begin to pull away? It's almost like they're gonna think like, they're missing out on that. Like that's what their brain's gonna tell them. FOMO, right. So how do you kind of start to pull back at least like a little bit, or how far you go, or what are your thoughts on that?
I would definitely say start in small steps with anything. Let's say if we're going to the gym or writing a book, for example. I did not wake up one day and say, okay, I'm going to write a full book and I'll be done tomorrow. I started small steps. Okay, maybe I could walk in and go on my computer. Okay, maybe I could just type one sentence. Okay, maybe I can start, doing a paragraph now. Okay, maybe I'll elongate it more and more and more. Going to the gym, maybe I could just walk to my car. Maybe I could just drive 5 minutes. Maybe I could, just start with one set. I would just say starting small with limiting. It's all about just lessening your screen time. If you could just go through small steps, I would say that would definitely help.
Yeah, that makes sense.
We're going to do one last one out of kindness, and then you're going to wrap us up.
My distinction is as a concerned aunt. So I know we spent a lot of time speaking about the social media addiction. Where are you with playing video games online, and how have you managed? Are you still playing? How has that? Because I have a 12-year-old, 13-year-old that is definitely addicted to Fortnite, and it's just didn't even come say. Well, it's not funny. He didn't even come say hello for Thanksgiving. Like I'm noticing a distancing behavior, and it's a challenge for my brother, who's a father, who's just he's at an age where I want to hear more, like, how do you manage the coming off of the video game addiction, and are you playing just you're on social media with purpose? Are you able to game with purpose, and have you evolved your go?
Okay, man. Yeah, sure. So I would like to say specifically with a game like Fortnite, for example, they've designed the whole thing to be addictive, and they literally they've taken the primal desires that people have and put it into these virtual video games. So when kids go in video games, they're in a virtual world. They have rewards, ranking systems, and stuff like this, and they love to just compete in this world, and they're making so much progress. They're getting all these rewards. So if I'm getting all these rewards in a video game, why do I need to do that in real life?
But who bought the video game for you?
Well, you're saying, who bought the video game for me? The parents, correct. Right. The parents sometimes they never. I don't think the parents would know what I just said. Yeah. Did they know that? It's not the parents'
don't know.
fault. I don't want to blame the parents.
No, that's not what I'm saying. But it's like it is where it's the truth though, where there's a demand from the child because they feel like the peers of what's out there, and then there's the parent that feels the pressure. I need to get this because this is how Fortnite's good because they connect with their friends, and it's COVID, so at least they have contact, but they're learning how to shoot each other. So it's like, where is that responsibility? And this is not the time that.
This is so. I mean, I think this is so. This is obviously something. Maybe we'll have you come and lead a whole day. Well, if you think about it, I mean, this is the work that. So just keep in mind, tying this all in a little bit, and I'll pass it over to you. Is that we saw a little bit earlier when we started around the cost of convenience, that film that's coming up. So this is a topic that is a community too. Sanaz is obviously working very closely on. You're someone that we can tie this into. And I think this is an interesting idea for us in longevity, because this is another pathway for our coalition to talk about. Because by bringing this in, we're also bringing in the fact that we're bringing in new ideas to the longevity conversation. We're not just saying, oh, I don't want to die I don't want to get old and die. It's like, oh no, what is this doing to us as a society, as a civilization? How do we evolve to have this expanded health span? Because it's really no measurement. Like we were talking at the beginning of this around lifespan. It's like we want to extend our life. But if you really want to extend health span, it starts with their age. Right?
Yes.
It doesn't start when you're 50 or 40. It starts right now.
Right.
And so you guys are modeling for us this idea of health span from an early opportunity, and I think we need to weave that into everything we're doing.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
That would be the next topic for you for the next seminar. Many parents would be interested.
I think we could do something. We could do some type of larger event.
Just to wrap it up in terms of why I am partaking in something like the Heal Summit is actually I'm a lot, like I'm really motivated by Shaya and by my brother's generation because they're the most targeted demographic, for big tech, for monopolies, and, very soon the biotech longevity industry. And I think that, as we're transitioning, with a lot of the advancements in biotech and longevity, these are the future demographic, these are the future clients, these are the future people adopting that. And I feel personally a sense of responsibility to have that discernment and for HEAL to be able to distill and discern that information for this generation, because they're motivated, they are aware, and they are, they're I think this generation is more advanced in terms of their consciousness because they've had access to this information at such a younger age, and we really owe it to them to be able to lead a path even within the longevity space so that they can have that discernment.
So maybe we need to do like a parallel youth summit that's run and organized by youth at a longevity.
Yes.
So we have our longevity conference, right? But then we have a parallel youth summit, and then we have ways to bring those two groups together. So
Very
it's like
good.
the youth are running a summit over here, but we're maybe in the same complex. And it's like, okay, now we're going to have these interactions.
Yeah, because parents can bring their, teenagers and they could interact with them.
Oh my God, I got goosebumps on that one.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
It's important to highlight child, and they have a voice, and we should be able to platform them and platform their voice because it took me a really long time to even understand this, and the fact that they understand this at such a young age. Most adults in this room don't understand. Like most adults in any room that I've ever been in do not understand the mechanisms behind surveillance capitalism or what drives big tech, and it's impacting them the most because we've already grown up, our brains have already been formed, we know the difference and can make the distinction, but they're officially called digital natives because they've grown up with this technology, and we're considered digital immigrants because we adopted it much later in life.
Right.
Alrighty.
Very good.
That was awesome. So we're just going to wrap this up, and actually I think we have the perfect person to bring this whole thing home in a way. No pressure, no pressure.